Okay, I think we are live now, officially, properly. Let me put the parameters on the screen so I know that everything is working okay. Excellent. I think if you guys can see me, hear me, all of that, if someone could give me a thumbs up or drop something on the chat, because actually I'll be able to see the chat better, that would be great. And we are about to get started properly in literally just a second. I think it's almost about to be 11 o'clock. And yeah, in fact, my dad just told me it's 11 o'clock, so we can get started. So hi, everybody, whether you're watching us live or from home later on. In case that you're new to the channel or you don't know what you're doing in here today, my name is Dr. Lilian Céspedes González. I'm a tour guide and historian, and we are today in my hometown of Santander. Hey, Catherine, how are you doing? Thank you so much for joining. So today we're doing a very special tour. We've never done this tour before. We're going to go through a neighborhood that is nearby my house, sort of. kind of nearby my house, kind of not. And we're going to go hunting for pieces of street art. The majority of the street art that we're going to be seeing today is actually done by local artists or perhaps not so international renowned names like we've seen in previous editions, like Okuda. I don't think we are actually going to go through any Okuda this time, but after this tour, I'm going recording to pick up a few other Okudas that are farther along the road. This is quite a tight neighborhood in the sense that you're going to notice the majority of the streets around us are kind of labyrinthic, and they probably look a lot the same because it's mostly a residential area. Thankfully, that means it's mostly quiet. We are not going to encounter a lot of traffic, so that's that. And since we are about to get started, well, I'll start turning the camera just now, but remember that the way to support us is through the link somewhere in there in the chat, through the PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee channels. If you have any comments, any questions in the meantime, drop them in the chat. And now, well, I'm going to actually get started. So we're actually just two streets away from my actual house, my parents' house. And first I wanted to show you a little mural that we have here in these stairs. You can actually see the mural all the way from the back, but I particularly like the first half of the mural. These are these man pigeons. In the city of Santander, like I'm sure in many cities all across Europe, we've always had a lot of pigeons. My mom always called them the flying rats because we used to have very bad problems with them back in the day. So, well, making use of some of the known pop culture gags and whatnot, these murals have been done in this kind of 3D effect, which, as you can see, is actually quite cool. Now, if we were to continue the rest of the road, which we're not actually going to go all the way up, you can see that there is a couple more sections of the mural. Some of them have writing, some of them have further, sort of details in there. This is something that has started being put in a lot of places, not just in Santander. We're not new in that regards. This kind of 3D murals to beautify normally stairs in places like this that are a bit, unseemingly maybe. As you can see, like I said, this is mostly just there are no pretty buildings, so to speak, in this area. I'm not throwing shade to my own, neighborhood in that regards. It's just mostly a residential area that was developed in the, late 20th century. So the majority of these buildings are all just, essentially brick and mortar. So particularly in places like Santander, that because of the history that the city has had with many disasters across time, including a fire, a big explosion of a ship in the 19th century, and a few other things, including some terrorist attacks and problems with the weather, some parts of our town are frankly not very nice looking. So the issue of street art has come to the rescue to actually provide, with ways of beautifying, which I think are cool. Now, of course, in our town of Santander, a lot of these became very popular already in the 80s, late 80s and early 90s. And well, here we have a more traditional pintada. El tiempo pasa muy rápido, no te quedes con la duda. That literally means time goes by very fast. Do not keep doubts within you. So these are the traditional pintadas, as we call them, just traditional graffiti. You're gonna see loads of it everywhere. Well, as this idea of graffiti started with, hip-hop culture, alternative culture and whatnot, in Santander we had a very important name that has actually obtained renowned popularity, which is Okuda San Miguel. Okuda San Miguel made this street art very popular in our town, later on in Spain with other big names farther down towards Madrid and whatnot. And that is why since then, well, we've kind of taken it to it as our signature move, a little bit like Bristol with Banksy. And here we have what I think is a really cool mural by Dulk. This is a bit more of a renowned artist, and as you can see, it's just a congregation of different animals, sort of in a surrealist kind of way. Okuda uses some of these same elements, but on a different scale. However, as you can see, it's very colorful. A lot of the streets in Santander have a lot of buildings painted in this kind of beigey yellow sort of background. So we tend to use things that really pop to, you know, break down the overall sameness of a lot of these pieces. Well, I'm gonna try and give you the angle from the other side of the road. We're actually on quite a narrow road, so getting the whole piece by Dulk in the screen is a little bit tricky. But let me get to the other side, and we're gonna start walking as well towards the main cluster of pieces. But let me see if I can, maybe if I tilt it a little bit more. There you go. I think that's roughly, with the angle that I have in here, as good as we're gonna get. So let's give Dulka a wave goodbye, and let me turn around. We're gonna encounter a little bit of renovation work, so my apologies. This is gonna be a tiny bit loud. And then we're gonna go now. This is a street that I actually used to walk a lot when I was little, because several of my friends actually lived up this way. Again, as you can see, this is all humble neighborhoods. This is a traditional working class area, which is why, well, also the constructions are perhaps not as beautiful as in the main city center of Santander. And here we're gonna actually approach, I'll say it, an area that also has an anecdote, and that I actually know it because it happened when I was little. So just over here, we're gonna see a couple of things. So as you see, again, even smaller pieces of street art in different areas. This here on the corner with Calle del Sol, which means the Street of the Sun, is an area with a lot of bars and a lot of clubbing. This one here on the side, the one that is on the mosaic, is quite literally the name that says the Mosaics of El Sol, the Mosaics of El Sol. And the pintada next to it says, "No te enamores porque acabarás odiando." Do not fall in love because you'll end up hating. Well, one of those, I guess, poetic or not items. Now here we have a very peculiar piece of street art. As you can see, it goes actually over the glass of the actual building itself. Let me just cross the road so I can show you better how it goes through. Well, again, this one has been put in here, and there is a bit more on the side to beautify this building, because there was, like I said, quite a nasty catastrophe that happened when I was little. I must have been in, I don't know, I reckon I couldn't be older than 10 years old, something like that. Probably a bit younger. My dad said it was late 90-something. I suspect 98, 99. This used to be, just like I've said with the ones in la Calle del Sol, a nightclub. And actually, the friends that I had in here heard it very clearly. Everyone heard it in the neighborhood. One night, this thing completely exploded. The guy actually literally set it ablaze to claim the insurance money. And the actual building itself, the side of the building, has been completely damaged since then. So in an attempt to beautify and reclaim this part of the street, which, like I said, has not received a lot of love recently, since the damage to the actual building itself was so severe, it's not been very successful to kind of rent and make something in here. They've beautified it with a street art piece, and it continues on the other side. And the topic of this one is sort of like monsters. Whether this is, as you can see, is quite gruesome, quite graphic in that regard. Whether that is because of the very fate that the actual establishment suffer, or something else, that's that's for you guys to decide. But well, as you can see, and like I promised, the variety of bits of street art that we have in Santander is quite abundant. Whether it's quite colorful, or something a bit more dark and mysterious like this, it's all part of the culture we've developed in the city. Well, we're gonna go actually to the left here, because as you can see, this becomes quite a steep hill. So we're gonna go backwards, and we're gonna try to go to see another piece that is actually gonna go around. and we will actually go sort of this way in a few moments, but I'm gonna take you through one of the most popular attractions in Santander, our mechanized escalators. These are put in here, as you can see, to go to the very, very high up places in the city, because, well, you know, the name that we have for the region where I'm from, Cantabria, is the mountain, because we're quite literally on the mountain ridge. So particularly, like I said, since this is quite a residential area, we do have a lot of elderly people that live around here. So a few years back, our local government decided to install these escalators in some of these parts of the city to help with mobility. And they've actually really improved the life conditions of the people of the neighborhood, because I'm sure that you can see, if I point to the other side, you can see the steep ascent. So, you know, the escalators actually make my life easier to come and bring you to places like this, because I promise you, if I had to climb all of this on my own, we wouldn't see as many pieces of street art today as we would with the help of these items. So, as soon as we come out of these escalators, we will see a couple pieces more. And we're gonna go actually to an area that I know relatively well, because around these streets, both my godmother and my great-grandmother, which some of you may have heard about in the past, actually used to live around here. So as a little girl, I actually walk around here quite a lot. And here we have another piece of street art. As you're gonna notice, many of them are often located next to entrances to garages, again, because they're not terribly the most pretty places to be. And this is one of the many murals that we have linked with the Little Prince. Let me see if I can center it a bit better. So what it actually says here in the quote is: estar atravesando una tormenta no significa que no te dirijas hacia la luz del sol, which means going through a storm doesn't mean that you are not moving towards the light of the sun. Now, you're going to see that we're going to have actually a fair few different murals and connections with the Little Prince in Santander. It's something that has been brought to my attention. I don't think a lot of people outside of the Spanish and French-speaking world are necessarily very aware with the Little Prince itself. I will explain a little bit more why is important. But essentially, in case that you're not familiar with the I'll say it, with the book, it's a little book supposedly written for kids, but actually it's for adults too. It was written by Antoine Saint-Exupéry, and in fact right here there is another one, which is, as you can see, a bit more deteriorated, because it was one of the earliest ones that they did. But Antoine Saint-Exupéry actually wrote the piece in the 30s, 40s. A lot of his writings were actually sort of vetoed and banned by the Vichy government. And it's a very interesting piece of writing, in case you've not read it, because he kind of wants to challenge adults, to see if adults actually have the same capacity, the same capability, imagination and ability to reason than children. And in Spain, it became very important for kids and adults. It was kind of like a philosophical reference as well as political in many ways. So we have many of these pieces. It was actually one of those books, in school at least, that were very popular. And as you can see, this is the third one, and there is actually another one here. If you bear with me, I'll go up the stairs. That continues with the saga of the Little Prince. And hello everybody, YouTube has just told me that a bunch of people has just joined, so thank you so much for joining us in here today. Very welcome to drop us any comments, any questions in the chat. When I'm not running out of breath going up and down the hill or the stairs, I'll be able to reply. Oh, I'm glad it's one of your favorite books, Catherine. It is one of mine too. I think it's actually a very beautiful story. And here you have another one, which, as you can see, it's got the little rose of the Little Prince. And well, because there is construction going behind us, we're gonna go back down just so we can avoid the grinding sound. But let me just get my foot in. Right, and then we'll go down here. Yeah, the one problem is that the wind has been quite fierce in Santander all year round. Well, here you have some nice views of the bay, by the way, the advantage that we have being high up is that, well, you get to see actually the whole bay, and you can see the fog actually here. You can probably have a nice frame. That in front of us is the area of Peña Cabarga, and not far from here, if the sky wasn't blocked by the cloud cover, you would be able to see the famous area of Picos de Europa. So, you know, it has its rewards as well, climbing up the hill in that sense. Right, let us continue our descent backwards so we can go to the rest of the murals here. And right, okay. My dad was just making me aware that they were doing some cleaning precisely in an area that we were going to go to just now, so we're going to have to take a little side step. But I'm glad, Catherine, that you also know the book, because we were having a conversation about it just the other day. I was quite surprised that in many English-speaking countries it was not as popular as in Spain, France, Italy, you know, other European countries. I wondered if it was like a language thing, but I know the book has been translated, so not sure. Right, let me just get away from it's a power jet that's cleaning the street. So here we have a couple of pieces. First, let me show you this one right up here. These ones, both I believe, are done by J. Case. It's actually a UK artist, if I remember correctly. I think, I may be wrong, but I think he's done some pieces in the area of Portsmouth and Southampton, and if so, we will be seeing them soon when I bring you those pieces of street art. This is mostly, as you see, abstract art and a couple of references to the local lifestyle. That is surfing and fishing, which is part, of course, of the core of our maritime village. And then, well, here, some other abstract things to do with life, the brain and the eyes. And then here on the other side, I'm actually going to have to cross the road. Over here, we have quite a big thing. So this is actually the entrance to a school. This is Las Escuelas Verdes, quite literally means the green school. And in a lot of schools in Spain nowadays, particularly in Santander, there are a lot of, you know, art pieces related to, well, whatever may be relevant for the school. So we have some bits. This is Enrique Gran, as you can see, and as the item probably shows, artist, an important member of the artistic and creative community overall. And here, in fact, the street that we're at is the intersection with Enrique Gran. Ooh, I nearly dropped to the floor because I didn't notice there was a step in there. And then, of course, you know, things related to school, like studying, maths, analytics, etc. It actually continues all the way through here. As you can see, it's a very big one, which is one of the reasons why schools tend to be quite a popular space for big murals like this, because they need, well, in Spain, the majority of our schools are, you know, built in blocks, like you can see here. I'll show you the actual height of the school itself. So as you can see, it's like a block of flats in that regards, of 3 or 4 stories. So they often end up being, you know, scurried away in between streets. Again, not necessarily the nicest looking buildings. So it's a way of course, encouraging them, making them a bit more friendly for students, for kids, etc. Which I think is a nice thing to do. In my school, we never had anything like this. It was only after I left school that they decided to put a nice mural at the entrance. So I think it's something that has become at least very popular here in Spain and in Santander for sure. Again, because since we have the space for it, and let me give you the whole view so you can see how massive the mural is from one corner to another. I think it's a nice way of actually improving the general look of the city itself. Well, we're actually gonna go up the stairs, so we're gonna go backwards because we need to do a bit of a little zigzag. Like I said, this area around here is a little bit labyrinthic with all of these ins and outs. So we're gonna just get through and just making sure that there are no cars. Well, there are really no cars in here at all, but it's always prudent to keep an eye out. And now, here you can see as well the quality of the color. This one has been put in here quite a while, so you can tell we take good care of them, because with the amount of rain and wind that we have in this city, if we weren't taking care of this would be completely peeled off, rotten, and you know, disastrous. Right, bear with me, I need to look down the stairs. I'm gonna try to point at the mural, but we're now up and down once again. So let me, well, here you can see as well some more traditional graffiti through there. And then here in the backyard of the school, I don't know if you can tell through the fence, there is some more. So this is what I was meaning, you know, different items of pop culture, superheroes, you know, elements like that that can be of interest to the children are what is being used to improve the conditions of these schools. In fact, Las Escuelas Verdes for a long time, just to give you a little bit of local knowledge, they didn't have the greatest reputation, I guess. Like I said, this is a working class neighborhood. I'm not necessarily going to say rough, because I don't think that's necessarily fair, but it didn't necessarily have the greatest fame. So, you know, all of these sanitations that we're doing in our cities to try and improve the lifestyle is important. Well, here we're gonna go downwards this way. By the way, you have a nice frame so you can appreciate the age of the buildings. In fact, this one is actually relatively nice. There is a lot of buildings here from the 30s that, well, as you can see, the facades often get painted just to try and keep up with them. And with maintenance, we do get often, at least in Santander and in Spain, more and more special subsidies, and this is another reason why it happens a lot maybe in this country in comparison to others, to improve the facades of our buildings because of the weather. So normally when the facades are about to be, you know, fixed, a big mural is commissioned, since, well, the work is going to be done anyway. That's the score. And in fact, we're going to see a mural that will link to this in a few moments, because some construction workers themselves that do the specialized work for the facades actually become in charge of creating the street that it serves. Well, as you can see, we're back top to where we were earlier with I'll say the establishment that blew up, and we're actually gonna go back up through the big, I'll say it, through the big hill. I'm just minding my steps in here because it's, like I said, quite steep. And in here we're gonna be walking towards a mural that is actually relatively recent and that is very cool, very big. That kind of does a homage to cinema. We're now in the street Macías Picabea, in case that you are interested in knowing where we are specifically. The name of the street is right there, Macías Picabea. And as you can see, it's a swindly road that goes up and up and up and up and up and up and up. So this is so you can see that the very important need of those escalators that I was showing you earlier. Well, unfortunately, to get to this piece of street art, we cannot use the escalator, otherwise we will miss it. So we need to put all our energy into this. So please bear with me as I sporadically run out of breath. But as you can see, it's a generous, sprightly walk, not necessarily in nature. Well, again, we are now getting to the area of Santander called General Dávila, which is, again, another residential area of the city. That is where my great-grandma used to live. In fact, we're going to be walking pretty much next to the flat that she used to own, where I spent many days as a little child. And here we continue with the street art. Here we have another connection with the Little Prince. This one is quite faded, unfortunately, as you can see, because I'll say it, the base for the mural itself, it was all white, and as time has gone on, the birds have mostly gone. But, well, that's the boab tree that still survives. But the important thing here is the massive mural that I was mentioning about the cinema. And here you go. So as you can see, we have this massive side of the city, this contention wall that actually goes all the way up. And well, we're not gonna be able to get it all in one shot. Let me get to the corner. Right. So as you can see, this is all a dedication to cinema. Why cinema? Well, it could have been anything else. This, by the way, is by a local artist. We have an account. If you follow Instagram, Facebook, or anything like that, it's called @murals Santander. It's literally murals, but in between the L and the S an artist which is Haute Tattoo. So he or she are street art and tattoo artists, which has become quite a popular thing to do here in Spain. And well, I'm sure you can recognize many of the films represented in here, but we have the Minions at the top, Batman, Grease, The Shining, Alien, one of my favorite films of all time, of course Back to the Future. If we move a little bit farther up, let me find a spot between the cars so we can get a cleaner shot. We have Indiana Jones, most certainly, Mary Poppins, Jurassic Park. What else do we have? We have Hedgehog, and I think that is The Birds. I'm not entirely sure which these two here at the bottom are. I thought it must. I think. Yes, it's West Side Story there next to Singing in the Rain. That is the girl with the coat.
That's West Side Story.
Oh, that is West Side Story. Sorry, my bad. That is Silence of the Lambs, and then Singing in the Rain. My dad here whispering in my ear in case I missed any. There we have the girl in the red coat, of course, from Schindler's List. Oh, what else do we have in here? That is Humphrey Bogart in Casablanca. Then we have The Godfather, and the one at the top, Clark Gable. There you go. I'm afraid that perhaps my age makes me not necessarily the most cued into some parts of classical cinema. Apologies in there for being a 90s millennial. I do have a pretty good knowledge of cinema, but sometimes I'm a bit lost. Right, further up here we have, of course, the classic The Lion King, The Planet of the Apes. Then we have Rocky here at the bottom. And this one here with the bird, I generally do not know. So I will ask for an assist in this one. Do you know this one too?
Yeah. This one is a Spanish film.
Oh, it's a Spanish film. That would explain why I perhaps didn't know it. I'm not very good with classical Spanish films. It's called The Innocents. And
well, this is one of the main characters.
He's one of the main characters in the film. We used to have this is gonna sound very, very niche Spanish pop culture, but every Sunday we used to have on Spanish TV, I believe it was in Channel 1 or Channel 2, something called Cine de Barrio, which was essentially a program where they did like a little bit of a talk show, and then they would put a classical Spanish film where, you know, they will then comment the film afterwards and whatnot. Most of them black and white, or, you know, the early stages of proper colored film cinema. I used to watch that when I was little a lot because my great-grandfather was obsessed with it. So every Sunday, since I used to be with my great-granddad and my great-grandma, I would watch that. But unfortunately, again, that was many years ago and not necessarily went through the whole roster. Well, of course, here we have homage to Charlie Chaplin, we have E.T., Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story, and I think that one with the diligence is the Stagecoach, which is a classical Western. And then, of course, here we have a few more famous ones. We have the Star Wars mural, of course, that is Leo and Kate in Titanic, of course. Then we have the Clockwork Orange, the Terminator in the corner, but hang on, because to get this last bit, I'm actually gonna cross over since the road opens up in there, just so you can appreciate the width of the mural itself. As you can see, it's just absolutely massive. So that's why I need to go in steps, and since there is no traffic coming, I'm just gonna cross very quickly so we can very closely see the Terminator here. And then over there, this is Forrest Gump, waiting, of course, for the bus with his box of chocolates. And here you have at the end of it with the details again of the artist, in case you want to check them out. Producer and director El Reos y Haute Tattoo and Murals de Santander. And then here is just literally the entertainment idea of the whole thing. Right, well, since we're here, I'm actually gonna cross again the street to give you another view of the mural itself as whole as we can. I also have another view into the Bay of Santander, which we will take advantage of. But more importantly, there is a street art bench. I don't know if you guys have any of these in your hometown or have known them. In the UK, they've started to become popular. So here you have the full length of the mural. Let me see if I can cut that car there so I can give you a cleaner shot. and you can understand the better position of it in relationship with the buildings. So we've had these benches with street art bits that have become really popular in Spain and in the UK, some other places too. I just haven't seen them so much. This is again the views of the bay with the fog that's coming in. And although it's windy, I promise you guys, we want the wind to keep going, because if the wind stops, the rain will come in. I don't know if you can see, well, probably not so easy to see with the camera, but I can see the spikes in the sea already, which means things are gonna get hairy pretty quickly. But as I was mentioning, we have many of these benches, which is just coming up here, which are a form of street art, often to memorialize people. We're going to encounter another one in a few moments, but this is very important so that you can understand part of the context as to also where some of our love for street art comes in here. This is the memorial bench to Francisco Ibáñez. Ibáñez is a legend in Spain, particularly for the generation on from 1936 onwards. He actually died just a couple of years ago in 2023, and he is essentially like not necessarily the father figure, but certainly the most iconic developer of the Spanish tebeos. Tebeos is essentially kind of like Spanish comic books, but they don't have the format of your classical American comic book. They follow perhaps a bit more similar the French format of the bande dessinée, but specifically what Ibáñez was very well known for is for making pieces of satire and comedy. And in fact, the characters that you see here represented are the main characters of one of his most famous comic series, both on paper, and it became a cartoon series when I was little, Mortadelo y Filemón, which you have the name right here, which is actually quite a funny thing because even the names are comedic. Mortadelo is like the word mortadella, which is, a cut of cold meats, for example, and they are supposed to essentially represent like a comedic CIA, but Spanish version. So it's called the TIA, which tia in Spanish actually means auntie. So it's all very, silly laughter and whatnot. All of the missions go incredibly silly. The two main characters are the one with the glasses and the one with the red pants. And these are the dynamic duo, Mortadelo and Filemón, who try to, essentially get around fighting crime, fighting all of these bizarre rocambolesque, situations. And this is, like I said, one of many comic books that Ibáñez actually developed. Zipi Zape, which to some people is kind of reminiscent. No, Zipi Zape is not from Ibáñez, my bad. Is another one. Which one is the other one very famous from Ibáñez? It's just now gone. From the Super López? No, that one is also from the other guy. It's just there is Pepe Gotera. There you go. So a few of these are, again, like mocks. They're normally mocks of something else. The parody sort of genre is very popular in Spanish satire, in Spanish comedy. And it's something that even our comic book artists nowadays continue. In fact, one man here from Santander, Enrique Vegas, essentially has become really popular for making his comic books, which are kind of like bobblehead versions of like big pop culture names, from Indiana Jones to God knows what else. So these kind of benches that you see here, which as you can notice have the shape of a book, are actually part of our street art culture as well. And here is one of the covers from Mortadelo y Filemón when they were published in the Ole, which was like a specific format, which is not, I don't think is very well known outside of Spain. Some of these comics didn't always come in their own. They sometimes came as a pack of larger comic books or magazines or things like that. So that's the importance of Ibáñez, and why, as you can see here, let's see if I can get it with the mural. He's a very important item of our general pop culture overall, because without these cartoons, whether it was on the page or on the screen, a lot of kids and a lot of the new generation of artists and general creative people wouldn't have been, so inspired. Consider that for the longest time, since Ibáñez was actually working as an artist during just the end of the Civil War to the dictatorship, and then of course later on through the democracy, a lot of external products were vetoed, they were banned in Spain. So, some products that perhaps for people in the UK or America would be more familiar with, we didn't necessarily have access to them over here. So our own artists sort of had to work really hard, to create their own things, and of course escape censorship, which was not so easy to do in that regards. Well, here we have a very damaged street art mural, which is a reference again to a piece of Spanish culture. I don't know if you can see the bit in yellow, which is a bit faded. It actually has the words matutano. Matutano was actually a brand of Spanish crisps and snacks. When I was little, and our crisps and snacks weren't Walkers or Lay's or whatever it is nowadays, it was everything matutano. And the wind has now picked up, and the sort of brand advertisement was all yellow and a little sort of smiley. I cannot tell you how many bags of crisps, and not just crisps. My dad will tell you, he can vouch for me, gusanitos. It was the thing I would eat as a little kid, because when you're a baby, you don't have proper teeth, you have essentially gums, and these gusanitos are kind of like the Cheetos that are like puff cheese, but they didn't have any of that. It was essentially just the puffed corn flour and whatnot, and I would destroy them. I love them. So matutano is a well-known thing here. And as you can see, we have another massive mural, which actually you need to see close and far. I don't know if you can tell from up here, wording actually comes up, and actually it's easier for you guys to see on the screen, because the definition of the screen shapes the letters a bit better, but it essentially says pasión que, I cannot see the other one, que desborda la tierra, underneath the van, which essentially comes to say that the passion that overwhelms or goes over the earth. And as you can see, it's all like a floral, natural sort of thematic here. So I'm gonna get you closer now that we've seen the lettering, so you can actually appreciate the art itself. And again, utilizing these massive sort of dead-end pieces that are often between the one side of the neighborhood and the other. So here you see the beans, the flowers, the leaves, and we have another memorial bench, but I'll actually come to the memorial bench. I'm gonna go behind it, and then I'm gonna come to it in a second, because this memorial bench is actually very important for us. It's a Spanish woman that perhaps internationally is not known very well. So I'll come back to Clara Campoamor in a second, but I just want to show you the full length of the mural first. So as you can see, it finishes here, right over there. And again, I'm gonna do a wipe left, just so you can appreciate the full size of it all. There you go, so it's quite massive. And here, right next to it, once again, we have one of these benches. Here we have the cover of the book and the name of the woman, just in case that you're interested. This is Clara Campoamor. And this specific book is La lucha política por los derechos de la mujer, which is the political battle for women's rights. Now, Clara Campoamor is a very important figure in Spanish history of the 20th century. She's essentially the Spanish feminist leader of the movement. She was born at the end of the 19th century. She will die, sadly, in exile in Switzerland in 1972, the year my parents were born. There will still be 3 years of dictatorship, believe it or not, in Spain. This is her in one of her many speeches. This woman was essentially the first person that was pushing for female suffrage, and not just that, not just for the women's ability to vote, but in general, for better rights for women in Spain. Consider that during the life of Clara Campoamor, Spain actually went through 2 dictatorships, because everybody normally is aware to some extent of Franco's dictatorship, but there was an earlier dictatorship in the 20th century, which lasted not as long, but she went through a few of these issues. And this is how things went. She actually, I was reading about this yesterday. Let's see if I can remember it correctly. She actually wanted to be part of the many leftist movements that were, of course, starting in Spain at this moment in time. But essentially, a lot of left or socialist parties didn't want to have women representing them or give women the vote, because they were scared that since Spanish society was still quite conservative and essentially the role of the woman was, in the household and in the kitchen, that they would be kind of corrupted, I guess, to some extent by the church, and they would always vote conservative. So they didn't necessarily agree with her because they were scared that that could actually not go in their favor. So she ended up having to actually join the radical party to be able to actually, put herself out there and have a platform. And even eventually the radical party didn't sort of renew her as part of their movement. And unfortunately, when the civil war actually started in Spain, she went into exile to Lausanne, and then she stayed there in Switzerland until then, but always still, proclaiming and helping and trying to support from the sidelines, which many people in Spain, unfortunately, were forced to do at that moment in time. So this is Clara Campoamor, and this is the mural that is right next to her. They are not necessarily related, by the way. The mural, I believe, was here before the actual bench in that regards. So it's just one of those things that has been put in here because, well, it was perceived that the environment was conducive and appropriate, since as you can see, we have many of these collections over here. And well, as we're moving now, the wind has just blown straight into us. We're looking for a couple more pieces just over here. Hello, by the way, to the people that have been joining us in the meanwhile. Thank you so much. Hang on there. Thank you so much for being here with us. And I'm actually going to turn away from the wind to show you something which is sort of street art, but again, not conventional, which we have on the floor, which are, again, a collection of quotes from different people of Spanish history, normally either big literature figures, politicians, etc. This is Rosalía de Castro. She was a important writer, well, many other things. And she says, es feliz el que soñando muere, desgraciado el que muere sin soñar, which essentially says it's happy that one who dreaming dies, and unfortunate or miserable that one who dies without dreaming. So again, as you see, just a little bit of Spanish romanticism right there for you. Right, let me just resettle the gimbal for a moment, because since the wind has come in quite fiercely, and again, as you can see, we're really high up in comparison to the city. In fact, you can see a boat coming out of port now, just so you can get a bit of insight. The wind blows quite severely up here. We're actually quite high up in terms of the city levels. And here on the other side, you can see a little mural, which again is, thematic with things from kids. But for that, I'm gonna need to cross the road, and I need to do this here properly because, well, we are actually in the middle of a big thing. But before I do that, and before I show you the mural with the kids, this part of the mural, as you can see, is quite faded. It's the old one. I'll show you the new one, which is a bit better. But before that, and since I know Catherine loves The Little Prince, we actually have also a bench dedicated to The Little Prince itself, as you can see. So this is The Little Prince with his friend the fox. In case you've never read the Little Prince, just a bit more details. The idea is not just of writing this book to sort of see if kids and adults, which one is sharper or which one knows better. It's also a book that explores a lot of topics, including loneliness, friendship, freedom, your own internal world. It's actually quite a deep book in that regard. So the Little Prince is the main character. He sort of goes through different planets and encounters different characters who, well, face him with interesting philosophical dilemmas or with life choices that, are important. And that is how both adults and children are supposed to, learn to navigate different situations in life. So this is the book dedicated to the Little Prince, and now you understand why we have the collection of all of the murals here, plus the memorial book itself. And now, well, as you can see, I have cables right here dropping by, so I just need to go sideways and away from it to this other piece of street art. So again, as you can see, it goes all through underneath. And this was the zipizape that I was mentioning earlier from the other Spanish cartoonist, Escobar, which is, so the majority of everything that you see here in the lower half of the street are all cartoons, that were either comics or actual cartoons for kids that were popular in Spain. Not all of them are Spanish. Some of them are Spanish, some others are a bit more international. I don't know if you may be familiar, for example, with Mafalda in here, which is one of the most famous characters of Kino. So perhaps if you're more familiar with the Latin American world, that would be one of them. But these are Zipizape, and of course we have Peanuts and Snoopy. And this is, by the way, this is the name of the artist, Mutiño, in case that you are interested in following them around. We have Lucky Luke, of course, Popeye. This is indeed Super Lopez, which is essentially the Spanish rural version of Superman. Again, like I said, the satire always elevated. Then some things that perhaps are a bit more traditional, Spider-Man, the Flintstones, whatnot, Pink Panther, Asterix and Obelix over there. Then of course we have in here again Mortadelo y Filemón, and so on and so forth. We, Anacleto, the other famous spy of Spanish comics, always with a cigar at hand. Garfield, of course. El Botón es Sacarino, of course. This is the I don't know how the name exactly translates. Sacarino is again a play like with Mortadelo and Mortadela. Sacarina is the sweeteners that you put in your coffee or your tea if you cannot have sugar. We call that in Spanish Sacarina, and his botones, that's essentially I'll say it, this is a butler essentially, or the luggage guy in a hotel. So that's another one. Then of course Batman, Yogi Bear, Tintin and Milou. And finally, of course, here we have a few others, but more importantly is the quote. The quote says, "No olvidemos nunca que un libro, un lápiz, un niño y un profesor pueden cambiar el mundo," which essentially says, let's never forget that a book, a pencil, a kid, and their teacher can actually change the whole world, which I think is actually a very nice thing to put out there. And of course, the entire topic and motif of this one is, kids and kids' imagination and freedom and their ability to dream and to learn. And of course, the mural actually continues all the way around. This is probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, in terms of size and capacity mural that we have here in Santander. There is very few that are actually so big, because as you can see, it goes essentially all around the block. So again, it continues with a few more different characters from all of these comic books here and there. So as you can see, whether they are from big artists or not, because again, the majority of these are done, like I explained earlier, to beautify some of these, big block of flats. So they're done by local enterprises, artists or whatever, or sometimes international artists that take the commission. We do have a lot of street art, and not always necessarily in the places that you would expect them to be, because of course, as you can see, this is not a particularly popular or refined neighborhood. This is, just a normal neighborhood, like anything else. So we're now going to get into one of the main roads, where later on I'll be doing a straight up recording, because unfortunately the distances in this road is one of the main arteries in the city. So it's not easy to just do a live tour, because we will only see two murals. If I do a recording, I can put them all together into one. So it will take me the best part of an hour and a half to walk through all of it. We're gonna now be here in the actual street General Dávila. So as you can see, we've reached the top of the hill. The ground is actually flat now, because we're on the edge of the ridge, and we have here the last two murals of the tour, since we're approaching our sort of timeline. So let me get us to the next one, which is actually just here around the corner. So you can understand what I was mentioning earlier of people who fix the facades of the building, and that actually then create their own street art. So here, as you see, and this is, it's not like a beautiful piece of street art in that sense, and this is the Solamaza Trabajos Verticales piece And this was actually done by the, I'll say it, the company that, as you can see, repairs the actual facades, decided that, well, since they had actually done the facade work, they will create a piece of street art to, well, advertise their work, first of all, and second of all, not just to advertise their work, but to kind of, again, put out that idea that just because you're fixing a facade, it doesn't just have to be, you know, ugly brick and mortar in that regards, but it can be beautified. And this, well, obviously this is a simple one, but you know, it's kind of advertisement mixed with the ability that this very own company has to create this kind of work. My hair is going into my eyes, so I cannot see, but in that sense, as you see, we use them in more than one way. And we have one more piece of street art, which is actually tucked away here in between two buildings, and that will be pretty much the wrap-up for the tour. But as you can see, we're now in a proper busy street, so we need to time the crossing very well, so please bear with as we are finding the right spot to cross, because, well, like I said, this is one of the main arteries in the city. It actually it gets quite busy all throughout, so it's not like the smaller streets that we've gone through that I can be a bit more free with my movement. We're gonna carry on a little bit more. Well, actually, you get to see some interesting things you otherwise wouldn't get to see. Like here we have one of our Orthodox churches in Santander. This is the Orthodox, I think it's Romanian? Yeah, the Orthodox Romanian Church of Spain and Portugal is one of their branches. We actually have a lot of people from Romania here in Spain, so this is one of their churches. Normally they're quite, you know, small modern churches, because they're often built in quite unassuming places, since the communities are relatively small. Ooh. Yeah, I think we've timed the tour pretty well, because as you can see, the wind now coming through is quite fierce. So thankfully, we've been able to avoid it most of the time. So we're gonna get to the last piece, and thankfully we will avoid the majority of the wind. But this is, yeah, as you can see, this is one of the biggest challenges that I've had when being here. The weather is very similar to Southampton, to Winchester, to the south of England, and well, it's just been so windy all year round. As I'm sure many of you know, the gimbals and phones and cables and whatnot don't necessarily like this very, very much. We're walking by actually one of the public sports facilities. This is for, well, actually you can see it better through the glass. That was a bit silly of me. It's one of the many football grounds that we have for the kids to come and train. It's actually a very good facility. I don't know if you can tell, they've just redone the grass in here. So one of the many. This actually used to be one of the main, I'll say it, main barracks for the army back in the day. Then it was redone, and this is one of our civic centers. The building is actually a bit nice. It's been cleaned and redone recently, and this was part of the barracks too. And it's actually just on the side of this building where our piece of street art actually is. So let me just get to the crossing now, which we're lucky is going to actually turn green, so we can cross. 1, 2, 3, there we go. Perfect. That was very well timed. That was not, I cannot claim credit for that. That was pure pure luck in that regards. And then here on the side, tucked away, just getting there now and trying to protect the microphone and the gimbal from the wind. We have this very beautiful floral pattern. Again, we often find them in civic centers for obvious reasons. They're supposed to, you know, improve the sense of community and what have you not. This one has been a little bit more damaged by the wind, because as you can imagine, it's here on the side. It's not so easy to keep it together. This is done by an artist called Tina Lotta, and you may not be able to read it because the writing is actually a little bit faded. The rest of the mural is in a pretty good condition, but the writing is faded. It has 4 words. At the top, it says igualdad, equality. The second word right next to the window is love. Then we have respeto, which is respect, and empatia, which is empathy. This was actually done in 2021, the 8th of Jan 2021, so it's almost exactly 4 years old now. And it's here in the Civic Center. There is another bench in there. I don't know if you can see it. It's one of our red benches, in part, well, to promote some of these values which are important for us, like the red benches and the idea of the fists in the air, equality, love, and freedom, and specific in a lot of these civil centers, is because we have this ongoing campaign in Spain to fight domestic violence. All of the red benches in Spain are in honor of victims of domestic violence, to raise awareness, to stop the violence from happening. And many of these places where the refuge and the help is provided to the victims are also beautified precisely to, you know, try to bring joy into life and what have you not. And that is officially, guys, the end of the tour. So I'm just going to turn the camera around to say goodbye. So thank you so much for helping us in here. You can see how the wind is blowing. I hope that you've enjoyed that, even though, like I said, that the murals were not necessarily by very big artists. It's a big variety. I hope that you've learned not just how beautiful they are, but maybe some important aspects of popular culture in here. And of course, in a neighborhood that otherwise you wouldn't know about, because there is really no history or culture, so to speak, in these residential areas that are working class. And that's all for today. I'll be seeing you sooner or later on one of our tours and talks. Please also thank my dad, since he was able to actually take me through some of the side streets when we were blocked and whatnot, and the assists in the movies when I didn't know them. And I hope that you're all good. Oh, thank you so much, guys. It's very, very lovely. I hope that, you know, you'd be able to enjoy that later. If I was there with my camera, oh well, Julie, you know, if you ever want to, let me know and I'll take as many pictures of them as you want, because it's literally not even a 10-minute walk from my house, so it's very, very easy. But on that note, guys, I'm gonna actually carry on the whole street to film the bits that I cannot show you live, and I'll show you at some other point. So take care, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you very soon. Bye bye. Oh, good. We had